Humans seem to be diverse in terms of the phenotypes we can exhibit. Phenotypes being the observable traits that are a result of our genetics and, to a lesser extent, our environment. And yes, though there are differences between people alive today, they constitute much less separation than what we have historically come to believe. What we call human in English initially referred to existing people, a term that would go on to also describe our morality and intelligence. But what we now call human is being challenged with scientific facts along with the semantics that change the way we think. So are we, the people of today, the only humans? Well, let's find out. First off, I want to quickly discuss the construct of race. Race is a folk taxonomy that uses culture, skin color, language, and geography to place us into separate groups. Saying race doesn't exist is not ignoring the obvious differences between us. It's acknowledging that these differences don't constitute to as much differentiation as we have historically thought it did. So for example, let's say you have a native Korean and a native Nigerian. Because genetic information that is passed down from generation to generation is quite sporadic but at the same time quite limited, you are very likely to find a Korean and a Nigerian that have more in common genetically with each other than they would with other individuals from the respected country. And the same can be said for any groups of humans, whether it be Indians and Native Americans or Australian Aboriginals and Italians. Even though we tend to categorize people based off appearance, appearance often leads us to formulate false conclusions in terms of which humans have more genetic similarities, simply because when all their genetic material is taken into context, it says otherwise. I will be discussing this stuff in a future video, but I bring it up because it's important to note that this has actually led individuals to believe that the different looking people of today are actually subspecies of one species. Brown people, white people, black people, all supposedly being a subspecies of Homo sapiens. And I want to make it very, very clear that is completely incorrect, both in terms of science and in terms of semantics. But all of us as a whole are a subspecies. You, no matter what your background is, and I are both anatomically modern humans. This is a phrase to describe our specific subspecies, specifically known as Homo sapien sapien, which basically means wise man. Yep. This extension has become more and more apparent as we keep discovering individuals that are not anatomically modern humans, but nonetheless the same species as us. We understand that they are the same species as us due to their capabilities meeting the definition. For we have the capability to interbreed and exchange genetic material, producing offspring that are themselves fertile. And this is important to know, for just because two different species can produce offspring with each other does not necessarily mean both of those animals are subspecies of the same species. If their offspring cannot be fertile with each other, it's a dead end. Anatomically modern humans, on the other hand, were capable of having fertile offspring with Homo heidelbergensis, the last scientifically classified separate organism that we evolved from. We could also produce fertile offspring with Neanderthals and Denisovans, both of which evolved from Homo heidelbergensis just like us. And lastly, this list also includes our closest non-Homo sapien sapien relative, Homo sapien adultu. Homo sapien adultu, unsurprisingly, is the one that scientists feel the most comfortable with listing as a subspecies of Homo sapien along with us. Evidence is further showing that Neanderthals and Denisovans are also subspecies of Homo sapiens along with us. Genetic and physical evidence is starting to make scientists rethink how encompassing our species is, simply due to the scientific terminology specifying that they are just as human as we are. So not only are these organisms capable of breeding with our specific subspecies, but in terms of semantics, they are the same exact species as you and I. But this has been difficult to finalize simply based off of terminology, not capability. There have even been multiple specimens found that are a mix of anatomically modern humans and Neanderthals, modern humans with archaic features that are associated with Neanderthals. And if anything, race, how we perceive it today, would actually be technically more accurate at this level of context, but I would still advise against using it. And in all reality, this type of stuff makes me think of the Lord of the Rings, with humans and dwarves and elves, where there was occasionally different types of humanoids going on to have families with each other, essentially making mixed children. And for most of human history, the kind of world we lived in was actually very much like that. except with no magic, which of course is a shame, but you know. Even today, by means of genetic sequencing, we've been able to determine that all modern humans outside of sub-Saharan Africa can have upwards to 5% of their DNA originating from Neanderthals or Denisovans. And the very fact that this DNA exists within a mass majority of human populations today further shows us that our ancestors did interbreed, and they were capable of having fertile offspring that could pass on these genes over and over again. And one of the problems that makes this unnecessarily controversial is some people just don't like the idea of their ancestors having interbred with these other organisms like Neanderthals, even though they perfectly meet the requirements for them to be considered the same species as us. And some people just don't like hearing that, and part of the reason is because we have presented them as being very dumb and slow and just unmoral. It would be an insult to assume they have any genetic relationship with us due to inbreeding. All of us humans are pure, simply 100% Homo sapiens sapien. But the context paints a much more accurate picture, and why we just shouldn't think that. I mean, Neanderthals had many behaviors that we associate with humans today. They buried their dead and sometimes even buried them with flowers. They even cared for the sick and injured. They would talk to one another. They had social complex cultures just like we do today. They even played instruments, had art, and symbolism. These were beings who share some of the most fundamental things that we associate with being human, even from a philosophical point of view. Our and their genetics and behavior goes to show how human they truly are. I mean, just look at these pictures of facial reconstructions of Neanderthal skulls. These are people who could actually probably get away in our modern society living with us without many people thinking twice about what they were. So yes, me being human, with the majority of my ancestry being European in origin, as well as having Native American ancestry, I also have Neanderthal ancestry. Heck, I even have a brow arch, but that doesn't make me stupid. Nor does it necessarily mean it comes from Neanderthals, but hey, keeps the sun out of my eyes and I consider that an advantage. It also emphasized my eyebrows, so you know, ladies. And going beyond this, some people even say the first humans from a behavioral point of view were actually the organisms known as Homo erectus, because many of the behaviors that we associate with humans today can be first seen with them. So are we anatomically modern humans, Homo sapiens sapien, the only humans? Well, from a survival point of view, yes, but from a genetic point of view, from our subspecies, absolutely not. And from a species point of view, also including many other organisms within our genus, it looks like from a behavioral point of view, they are human too. And the more and more we discover, the more and more this becomes apparent. And this brings up my last and one of my most important points. We try to group understandings with our language, but sometimes our old words do not correlate with our new understandings. And it's gotta be up to us to fix that. This is because words shape how we perceive the world, how we think about things. And yes, some people don't like this type of change because it will force them to reevaluate their ideologies. But if words with old understandings are not fixed to meet the standards of our new understandings, we will only ever have misunderstandings. Definitions are not meant to shape the truth. The truth is meant to shape our definitions. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the video. My question for you guys is, what are your thoughts about the term human being more inclusive? And with all that said and done, my name is Dale, this is Think Fact, and remember, never stop learning, and thinking, in this case. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, that would really help the video out. And if you haven't already, please feel free to check out some of my other content, and subscribe if you're interested in staying up to date. Take care and have a good one.